Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, your resource for all things business, brand, and leadership. We are excited you have decided to join us today.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Tony Frasconi here on the Elevate Podcast, and I'm here with my good friends,
Mike Newman,
Robert Kalin. Excited to be here, you guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, great to be on with you again.
We are gonna talk with Robert Kalin, and he is our sidekick, our co-host, all of the above. But he's also an author of an incredible book he just released. And so I'm going to pivot over to Mike to kind of frame up the episode and how we're going to talk to Robert today.
Hey, well, Robert's just published a brand new book called Generous Influencers. And I spent 2 weeks, I shouldn't say 2 weeks reading. 2 weeks ago, I read through Robert's book. And there were lots of great things inside of it. And if you haven't got a copy, Robert, how can they get a copy?
You can find it anywhere books are sold.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in here, there was a section that Robert had about intentionality. And he has a quote from Les Brown that jumped out at me that I thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about today. It says, in every day, there are 1,440 minutes. That means we have 1,440 daily opportunities to make a positive impact. That's Les Brown. So, Robert, you picked this quote out, put this in your book. It jumped off the page at me during this section of intentionality about how am I actually spending my time every single day? And it created a sense of urgency as I was reading it. And I think I actually got up, I put a marker in my book and got up and did a couple of intentional things at that time. But tell us about, as you're writing this book, some of the things that came in and why this quote from Les Brown was important for you to include.
Yeah, that's good. I think if we are just to look at our life, and evaluate the time we actually spend, most of it is probably very unintentional. And with it being unintentional, time escapes us, right? And I don't want to say that like sitting down watching a movie is a bad thing, right? Because sometimes we just need to relax, and that's okay. But if we are doing that every single day, we're wasting so much time that could be invested in making a positive impact with being intentional with it. I think if we don't take advantage of making time intentional, it slips by and turns into a negative thing, negative impact rather than a positive impact. And I think I can think of several examples specifically. If we are playing a game and we're unintentional with practice, it's going to turn into a negative impact on the field, right? If we are doing the same thing in our lives in business, you have a negative impact in your business if you're not intentionally going out there and making a positive impact. And so I think that's kind of where I was coming from with intentionality. I think Les Brown really summed it up very well. We have 1,440 opportunities every single day, a minute, every single day that we can say, hey, look, how am I going to leverage this minute? Right now, you guys, we're all sitting here on this podcast, investing our time into people that are on the other side, people that are listening to this, people that have the same opportunity that we do to make a positive impact. But it gets multiplied when we are intentional with it and do that one thing into the lives of others. So with all of us combined, whoever's listening to this out there, if we all are intentional with our time, it multiplies because it's not just one person doing it. It's hundreds, thousands of people who are intentional with their time making a positive impact.
Well, I think the neat thing about that quote is that, like Mike said, that sense of urgency that comes from thinking about each minute of the day, and how long does it take if I'm gonna do something intentional and make a positive impact. How long does that really take? I could write an email. I can pick up the phone and make a phone call and check in with a friend. I can do lots of little things to be intentional and make that impact. And when we think about like the larger stuff, how are we using our time towards those larger goals that ultimately might help many other people? Maybe you have an idea to write a book like Robert did, or maybe start a school of some kind. Maybe it's a nonprofit that you want to start. Anything that all of those things are going to ultimately help many other people. But the only way that will happen is if you're intentional with your time in working towards actually doing that. And so I think it's kind of a both and. It's like here and now, like in these seconds, in these minutes of each day, what am I doing? But then also in the same light, how am I using my time, the minutes, the hours of each day towards the goals of my life and my business, etc.
That's 100% it. Are we designing the life? We talked about this with James in a previous episode. Are we designing the life that we don't want to take a vacation from?
Yeah, that was great.
Are we being intentional with that, or are we not? I think, it really comes down to us understanding ourselves in order to make that all happen. But I have so I was at a baseball game with a couple of friends of ours, the Meisners. If you guys are listening to this, I just want to do a shout out to you guys. They invited us to a Mariners game against the Blue Jays not that long ago. And we're sitting there in the stadium, and they've got this kind of buffet style, they've got burgers and dogs and all the stuff that goes with it. And I'm on one side, and there's a gentleman I've never met on the other side. And I'm just sitting there kind of, dishing my plate up. And this guy starts talking. He's like, oh, they got, what did he say? He said something along the lines of, oh, they've got these sauteed onions. I love these on my hot dogs. I said, yeah, that's great. I love sauteed onions too, And he turned to me and he goes, I'm Colin. And he reached his hand across the table. And just that simple action, he could have just ignored me. But that was an act of intentionality to just say, hey, let's start a conversation. We had a great conversation afterwards. And, I think those are the little moments that we can take advantage of rather than just ignoring the person across the table. Start a conversation.
Some of us are task-oriented individuals, and some of us are easily adapted to people. Yeah. So if you're on listening to the call today and you're somebody who's a task-oriented individual like I am, and the DISC assessment, I'm double task-oriented, which means I focus on getting stuff done and not necessarily always having a good time at it. And sometimes I have a tendency not to be as considerate as what Robert was with the handshake and the conversation. So my suggestion would be that, and this is something that I had to learn to do, and I'm way better at it. You have to become intentional about making intentional action to interact with other people.
Yeah.
So I would actually put on my calendar time to get up out of my chair and walk around the office space where I was at to interact with my team, because I was too busy focused on the task. And I once I did that, they began to understand that there was more to the work than just pushing the paper. It was about the relationships that we had. And I think if you're a leader that you're struggling with your team, it may be that you need to get to know your team a little bit by getting up and asking them how things are going, not just with when you're going to have that report done, but how'd the ball game go? Or whatever it happens to be. That'll go miles when times are tough.
That's good.
Yeah, we can all be intentional, and it can tend to be very self-focused on the things we feel like we need to get done. And so I really love that example because it does, hey, you know what? I can be intentional towards my own personal goals or the goals of the tasks that I'm trying to complete for my business. But I need to be intentional in outreach too, and making connection, because talking to people and making the human connection is ultimately what this, in my opinion, what this journey is about, and the leadership that we leave behind is not going to be just a thing. It's going to be how we impacted people along the way. And I think when we always talk about legacy work, and what does that really mean and how does that play out? And it's what happens when we're not around anymore, with the things that we did, the fingerprint that we left. And so today's episode was all about that. It was all about those 1,440 minutes a day that we have, those 1,400 minutes of opportunity to make a difference and to be intentional with our time and with our focus. And we hope you really pulled something away today from that. I think there's a lot you could take in different directions, but between Mike and Robert and myself, hopefully you got just a nugget that might help you through your focus right now.
Absolutely. And I would say, the subtitle of my book is You Hold the Key to Creating Positive Impact. And I want to leave that with everybody today, because right now you are sitting there holding the key. And are you going to unlock the door to positive impact? Or are you going to hang on to it, put it in your pocket, save it for a rainy day? Maybe, you want to have a big impact rather than just the little things. Like, go ahead and use the key right now and change a life. Make a difference. That's what this life is all about. Like you were saying, Tony, it's about the relationships. It's really about making that positive impact in the lives of others. I can say, both of you guys have had personal impact on me in big ways, in just how we've interacted. And it's made me a better person for it, because I've been able to take those things and learn something. And so I just want to thank you guys for the time today to just talk about the book a little bit and dive a little deeper, but also just your friendship. Just being around you guys makes me a better person, and I love that. So thank you.
I want to share one thing. We got an email from one of our listeners yesterday, and it says, I've listened to the newest podcast this morning, and I just wanted to let you know what an encouragement it was. It was even more powerful and meaningful to me because I see you guys regularly and have a relationship with you. It goes beyond just don't give up and you can do it cheerleading. And she goes on to say a few other things here. But what she says in this is that we are doing those things so that so it was extremely encouraging to hear the practical things you guys have to say. It's not just fluff. It's about real life stuff that we do. And so if you're listening, send us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And we'll wrap it up with that.
Thank you for joining us. Our hope is this episode has been helpful for you today. If it's impacted you in some way, we encourage you to share it with someone. To receive a direct notification of our next episode, click the follow button on your favorite app or platform. You can also watch each episode on YouTube. The links are in the description. If you want to connect with us on a deeper level, go to countercultureleadership.com/resources. We'll see you next week on the Elevate Podcast.